yoga. And so why is yoga so effective? Why does it help our nervous system, and how does it help our nervous system? And one of the main ways it does it is it helps create a balance between the sympathetic, and I'm using PNS for parasympathetic in this example, so the balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. And so we need that sympathetic nervous system response is essential to life, right? It's there to help allow us to survive under stressful situations. So we need that stress response. What's important is to be able to turn that stress response off after it's gone. And that's something that most people, well, I should say it's very individualized, but a lot of people have a very hard time turning off that sympathetic nervous system response. Again, using the traffic example. Traffic is stressing me out. I sat for an hour in traffic, and guess what? I get home and I complain about being in traffic for another 3 hours. Well, guess what? That stress of traffic and that sympathetic response lasted 3 hours after traffic was gone. Whereas if we learn to balance and learn to turn off that sympathetic nervous system response, our ability to deal with that stress has become much improved. And research has shown us that the practice of yoga and meditation, sort of mindful types of ways of living, enable us to have better control of our parasympathetic nervous system, and therefore allows us, because of that antagonistic relationship, to turn off that sympathetic drive much quicker. And as an example, and it's maybe not the best example, but my wife plays soccer, and sometimes she has games late at night, like 9 o'clock at night, so she doesn't get home till like 10:30. Playing sports can be, and it needs to be, have a very strong sympathetic drive. It's very, very hard exercise. It can be almost violent in nature, even soccer to a certain degree. So we do have a lot of sympathetic outflow. How long does it take her to go to sleep when she comes home after that game? She's tired, physically tired, but that sympathetic outflow lasts for hours. And so when and I don't know if you guys experience this, but if you ever go and play hard sports, even tennis, volleyball, basketball, those type of sports that really get you going and they really have a strong sympathetic drive, it takes a very long time to sort of mellow out afterwards. And that sympathetic outflow continues for a very long time. People who practice yoga on a regular basis, and this is pretty well described in the research, is you can have a stronger ability to calm down after that. And again, there's a lot of hormones released when we do these types of sports and these types of stressful activities. But again, those who practice these types of things like yoga are able to sort of minimize their response and therefore help us relax a lot quicker. So the ways that the parasympathetic side is enhanced, the muscle relaxation is one, so being able to relax our muscles sort of on command, and also pranayama, right? Breathing techniques are essential. And these both have short and chronic, so short and long-term effects on the parasympathetic nervous system. And I don't know if I talk about in this slide or in this talk today, but when we breathe and when we do controlled breathing, when we exhale, we have a very, very strong parasympathetic outflow. When we inhale, it's a sympathetic outflow. So even within our breathing, we have had balance, that sort of antagonistic relationship. So if you're ever stressed out, take long exhalations, and that will enhance that parasympathetic side for sure. Bless you. Next slide, Brian, please. So branching a little bit away from the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system, yoga and the nervous system, we're talking about motor coordination and motor strength, using the neurons that innervate our muscles. And so basically we're talking about refinement of motor patterns in the cerebellum. The more we practice yoga, and you can all surely attest to this, the more coordinated we become, the more balanced we become in terms of physical balance, even the stronger we become. And again, so the nervous system plays a huge role in that. Of course, our muscles are adapting, right? And that's sort of the use it or lose it principles. Our muscles are becoming stronger, but the nerves that innervate our muscles, when they're being used, not only do they grow and become more effective, they actually work more efficiently. And there is some research that says that even, so just using nerves in themselves has a use it or lose it principle. So practicing yoga in terms of our muscular development and coordination definitely enhances it. So next slide, Ryan. So yeah, this is somewhat redundant on this slide, but yeah, yoga is absolutely holistic, and you guys know that. So all aspects of the body, including the nervous system, are effective, and there's no way to avoid that, and there's no way we'd ever want to avoid that holistic effect of yoga practice. So, and again, I just mentioned that, yeah, there is some evidence that nerves function better with regular practice, and it's still somewhat, I would say, theoretical, because the research hasn't been able to prove exactly why. And there's some speculation that it's almost like a detoxification of the nerves, that nerves function, that they almost get cleaned out, and it's almost, well, detoxification sounds like the best way to describe it. And so what they're saying is that with regular yoga practice over time, that nerve impulses travel from one end to the nerve to the other a lot more quickly and with a lot less distractions, because occasionally nerve impulses can be lost, and so so nerve impulses become a lot more efficient with yoga practice. And again, the exact reason why isn't fully understood, but again, there is some evidence that suggests this. And again, that last bullet, yeah, we're going to talk about some of these the specific neural aspects of yoga with those systems that we talk about. So again, I'm not sure where we're going to go next week. We'll figure it out before I leave here today. But digestive system, cardiovascular system, and pulmonary systems are all on deck. So we'll talk about those specific neural aspects of yoga, those systems, when we get to those systems. Next slide, Brian. Oh, good, I did add it. I remember. So the parasympathetic nervous system. You mentioned pranayama already, and interesting to put it this way, but when we do pranayama and when we do real abdominal and diaphragmatic breathing, we have a physical massaging of the vagal nerve. And so while we're doing this, again, that cranial nerve 10 that I was talking about, the vagal nerve that has that really, really strong parasympathetic influence, is actually physically massaged, and that physical massaging stimulates that nerve to do those parasympathetic things. So again, increased blood flow to the digestive system, decreased heart rate, all those good things. And that's in the acute sense, meaning that's just while we're doing it. What happens though is that as we do this chronically, so as we practice yoga and pranayama for weeks, months, years to come, this parasympathetic outflow, this enhancement of that cranial nerve, among other nerves that we will get to down the line, remains elevated. So we end up with an increased parasympathetic nervous system outflow, meaning that our state of homeostasis has a stronger parasympathetic influence, meaning decreased heart rate, decreased blood pressure, all those wonderful things, increased ability to digest food, all that good stuff. So again, mentioned muscle relaxation earlier, but that also has an influence on parasympathetic outflow, as does our ability to tolerate stress. And so talking about balance, if we decrease the sympathetic side, that just allows better balance and better influence from the parasympathetic side. So our ability to reduce stress and tolerate stress, not perceive every little thing as being so stressful, right? Sitting in traffic, I'm sure, doesn't stress any of you out, right? There is no traffic in New Hampshire, I've heard. So, but truly, the decreased sympathetic outflow will then, of course, and as with yoga practice, people who practice yoga are less stressed out for many, many reasons. But again, that lack of sympathetic outflow will allow the parasympathetic side to remain strong and have a stronger influence. So, last slide, Brian. So just, between now and next week, and if you guys already got it all down, then don't worry about it. But just an applied review, so some sort of ways to apply the information that we've talked about. What are the effects of the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system? Understand those things. We had that slide that really spelled it out for you, so there's no need to necessarily write them all down, but take a closer look at those, actually those two slides. What are the difference in the way they stimulate our body system? So again, think of, how does the parasympathetic side, and again, it's really that all or none response versus individual organs response. Describe a situation where differing perceptions of the same stressor affect two individuals' physiological response to it. Meaning, if Brian were to ask one of you or two of you to get up in front of the class and do some sort of hula dance, I learned a hula dance yesterday. So, one of you may be really excited and have a very positive stress type of response, a eustressful type of response to it. The other person who he asked may be very, very scared to death of dancing in front of a class and therefore have a negative stress response.